Hi, I'm Father Drew, and today we're going to talk about bread.
Children's moment. Yeah!
So I'd like to tell you a story, and this is one of my favorite stories, and it's a story that takes place long before Jesus. In fact, it's a story that is probably one of the most important stories that Jesus read when he was young. And what had happened is that the people, Jesus' ancestors, were slaves in Egypt. And God saved them from slavery, liberated them, and promised them that they would be taken to a land of their own. Right? That's where the phrase, the promised land, comes from. This is the land that God promised. So God takes them out of Egypt and brings them into the desert. Now, one of the things is that they're out in the desert a lot longer than they anticipated. When God said, "You're going to be, I'm going to liberate you, and I'm going to take you to the land I have prepared for you," the people were like, "Okay, so is that 15 minutes drive from here? Oh, do we have to go all the way to Plainfield?" It was a lot longer, and they didn't get a timetable, so they're sitting here getting worried and frustrated and upset and hungry and thirsty. And now, it's natural, of course. I get hungry and thirsty if I'm on the road for an hour, let alone days, let alone weeks and months. So they're out there and they are thinking that they are going to die. Oh, I'm never gonna eat again. I can imagine you probably know what that feels like. Oh, so hungry. And so you go up to your parents and you're like, "Oh, I'm so hungry. Give me something to eat." And what do your parents say? What's the magic word? Please. Please what? Please, may I have something to eat? Right? We know that routine. That's what these people are doing. They're doing this in the desert and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna die." And God is giving them food. Now, one of the things about this story that's so cool to me is that it totally makes sense. It's like what happens when you've been running around all day and you are exhausted and you're tired and you're hungry and you get hangry, right? And you just get you think the world's gonna end. As if your parents will abandon you and never feed you again. But it feels that way. And that's what they're feeling. But God promised to take them to the promised land. He promised to give them food. They just didn't necessarily feel that in the moment. So they're getting all hangry. God provides them food. Now, my favorite part about this is that God doesn't just show up with a hamburger and is like, "Here you go." God says that promises to give them food every day, enough to feed them all. Now, this is a really big deal, and it's something that we don't spend nearly enough time thinking about. That God provided enough food for all of the people, not just a little nibble, not something that would sustain them. It's not like God had a granola bar and 5 kids and was like, "Okay, we're going to chop this sucker into fifths so that everyone has something." No, this was everybody eats their fill. It's like, we're going to do this every single day. You eat until you can't eat anymore. And that's when you stop, right? This is it. It is like going to a buffet and pigging out every single day. And that's the promise. Now, eventually, of course, in the sequence of events, they eventually get to where they're going, and God says, "I don't need to do this for you anymore. I will provide you with fields. I will provide you with crops. I will help you get to the point where you can feed yourselves." But the lesson that was there, that was supposed to have been learned, wasn't just that they could depend on God. It was that God provides for all. Now, eventually, God helps them transition from this life in which they get the stuff in the ground every single day and instead move to gardening and farming and the life in the promised land that was promised. So now they have access to all of those things. But the lesson of the desert remains. A lesson that they are called to serve each other and to make sure everyone gets fed. So when Jesus inherits this story, he inherits this lesson too, a lesson about everyone getting food, everyone being fed. And so we inherit that same story, that same lesson, that we have the opportunity to see in our neighbors and in our friends and all of the people around us the chance to make sure we all are fed. I hope you have an awesome day, and I'll see you again soon. With the peanut butter. Oh, sorry. Do you want some?